Greetings, I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the Meta Business Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to the Meta Business Millennial Podcast. We are live across social media. We're live on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And I'm just so honored, as always, to be live here with you today. And of course, we are post Super Bowl, post Kendrick and SZA amazing performance. And and if you haven't already, I want to welcome you all to the room. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, follow me across social media at I am Erin Patton. And without further ado, we're going to get into the content for today. Like I said, we are post Super Bowl. We are in Black History Month. We are celebrating so many things as Black women, as a Black community. And I really want to encourage us today to celebrate our wealth and our wealth potential. And as many of you may or may not know, my work started very centeredly and very thoroughly in business. And what I have always intended with my work is to inspire wealth creation, abundance mindset, wealth generation, entrepreneurship. And so I really want to start focusing on that in my podcast, just as much as I do on relationships, just as much as I do on loneliness and all the other, and burnout and all the other things that really kind of are problems, are blockages in our lives. And so, with that, I want to just go ahead and jump in to what I feel is really going to be a powerful and also hopefully awakening and unlocking podcast for so many of you that are tuning in. And what I want to start with, particularly as it relates to wealth generation. And I actually titled this episode, How to Be a Billionaire, and not like Oprah Winfrey, because becoming a billionaire very simply starts with your energy. And I always use this phrase, change your energy, change your life, because I fundamentally believe and know that as we begin to shift our energy, shift our consciousness, rise to higher vibrational frequencies, then we can attract all that we desire. And I know this isn't new for so many of you because it's all across TikTok now. It's all across Instagram. There are so many people who are talking about manifestation and vibrations and things like this. So this is not necessarily super new, yet we are definitely going to get into some higher and more advanced concepts in order to make this a reality. Because it's one thing to just talk about it and affirm it, and it's another thing to practice it and embody it, if that makes sense. So so I want to just get into a little bit of the statistics around business more specifically to help ground us in what the landscape of business looks like today and what the landscape of business can look like for Black women specifically. So let's just start with the first one. And it reads, a 2017 Fidelity investment study found that 88% of millionaires are self-made, with the majority being entrepreneurs who built their wealth through business ventures. Okay, so as y'all saw that the millionaires, which is the precursor to billionaire, built their wealth through entrepreneurship. And to further that point, globally, 47% of millionaires are business owners, highlighting a strong correlation between entrepreneurship and wealth generation. And this is from the Knight Frank's Wealth Report just a couple years ago. And, it shouldn't necessarily take statistics, but statistics help, again, like I said, ground us in understanding the truth around wealth creation and wealth generation and its strong correlation to being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. And I know there are so many Black women out there and just people in general who are struggling to get to that next level of wealth because they're working for someone, or they're in a professional situation, or they're kind of locked into a job. And I want to encourage you, like, you don't have to run and do it today and quit your job today, but seriously encourage folks to really consider the value of starting your own business, really moving in your own passion and your purpose, because the numbers don't lie. And when we get into understanding Black entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurs have 10 times the wealth of Black non business owners. And this source is from the Association from Enterprise Opportunity. And this right here is just, I mean, one of the most powerful statistics that I've seen in terms of Black entrepreneurs having 10x the wealth of Black non-business owners. So, if someone's making 50K a year as a professional, the chances that, of a Black entrepreneur is making literally $500,000, and that's kind of, if you put like side to side, like, it's just staggering the amount of wealth opportunity that there can be just by having your own business. And I want to just throw one more statistic in there around Black women in general in their net worth, because Black women, this is one that was, we had to fact check this. But this was from the Brookings Institution around 2021 when this statistic came out, and it reads: the median net worth of a single Black woman is just $1,700 compared to $107,000 for white women. And this to me was just a startling statistic, also kind of with that 10x one, because of the vast gap. And I'm sure there's so many factors that kind of contribute to, this being a truth, in terms of just like, I mean, $1,000 to $100,000 is a huge gap. And when we look at essentially entrepreneurship among Black women, we all have heard, and I've cited it before on my show, which is why I'm so interested in working with Black women entrepreneurs, because Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the US. However, we're seeing that 3% of Black women run businesses mature beyond the startup phase. So that means 97% of all the women who are, becoming Black women who are becoming entrepreneurs are not making it past the startup phase. So they have an idea, they may get it going, and then it never matures into a sustaining business. And this is from Harvard Business Review 2021. So this is definitely a reputable source, and one that really speaks to me. And I want to read this again. Black women are among the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, but only 3% of Black women-run businesses mature beyond the startup phase. And this one speaks to me, of course, because of what I do. And as, a business coach, as a metaphysical coach, as a spiritual teacher, all of these things go together in getting past that startup phase. And I brought in these statistics again to help ground us in the facts, help us understand the landscape as I get into sort of my personal narrative. And of course, the solution sets that I always provide at the end of the podcast, to help us understand like why this is important, why we have to, as Black women, start to, start our own businesses, partner up and work together and getting these businesses off the ground, creating a community around these things, because it actually is a difference between poverty and abundance, poverty and wealth. And we saw that, in the statistics around, by and large, the median net worth of Black women is $1,000. So we want to make sure that and the net worth is calculated by our debts, by how much income we bring in, by the assets we own. So like I said, there are a lot of factors that go into that. So we could, as Black women, of course, be earning a salary, but how much of that salary is going out versus creating wealth, sustainable wealth for generations. And we're also seeing in the statistics that the way to 10x that wealth for yourself is by simply being a business owner. And this became a reality for me, becoming a business owner, becoming an entrepreneur, I would say about 9 years ago. After I graduated from Harvard, I knew for a fact that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to jump right into entrepreneurship. This is in 2015, right after I graduated. Yet I started a fellowship and I did my thing on the side. So I was kind of in that startup phase, right after, business school, and I was working in Detroit. And as soon as I moved, I ended up cutting my hair and relearning how to take care of my naturally curly hair, and was making my own hair products when I was living in Detroit. And essentially, the hair product, I was getting compliments everywhere I was going around the city. Like, I love your hair. What do you use? Can you, so I was telling them that I was making my products. They're like, I want to buy them from you. And so literally that's how my hair business started within a year or two after I moved there. And when I started making my products and I got connected to a chemist through my dad, and it really started to become, a business. I launched my first product and did a whole crowdfunding campaign around raising money and building out the full product line and traveling to hair shows. I noticed that as I was working for myself and being an entrepreneur, this was also, like I said before, a dream of mine, because I knew that I was going to be stagnant in the corporate environment. And not only was I stagnant in the corporate environment, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't, fitting into the culture. There were so many limiting factors in terms of my corporate experience that really also initiated this entrepreneurial journey, even beyond the hair. It was more about having sort of the autonomy, the freedom, the ability to be myself, like wear my nails and my hair and talk the way I want and not have to deal with the corporate politics. And I believe that this also contributes a lot to the well-being of an individual, is having that ability to be authentically oneself. And that is very difficult to do in corporate America for anyone, less known a Black woman. So these are all the factors that really help to inspire my shift into entrepreneurship, and really, made the possibility happen. However, when I became an entrepreneur, I noticed that I was taking a lot of those same toxic behaviors that I experienced in the corporate world into my own business. And that is everything from working super long hours, being really hard on myself, not being able to, get the support or work with people that I was hiring, even in my team, or the business partner that I had, not making great decisions with the business partner that I brought into my business. And so all of these toxic decisions and behaviors and character traits were literally being carried over right into my business. And, this is essentially, when I say that the healing had to start, the self-development had to start, because if we aren't aware of that who we are, wherever we are, we're going to take that person everywhere we go. And so even if you're in corporate America, or if you're in your own business, it's going to be the same experience if you haven't made that shift, that energetic shift, as I talked about, that change your energy, changing your life. So you can change aspects of your life, but if you aren't changing yourself, your experiences are going to be the same. And so with that, my hair product was really inspired by that spiritual kind of walk that I was going through, and trying to be a better person and trying to love myself more, love my hair more, because a lot of my hair products, the sort of motto and ethos behind it was, love yourself the way you are, defy all odds was the name of the product, Deo, and own your authentic beauty, own who you are. And all of that was messaging, but it also needed to be embodied. And at that time, it certainly wasn't embodied. I was saying those things, but I certainly didn't feel that way about myself, or not yet at the time. So I needed to do the work, the healing work, if you will. And that is essentially where my spiritual journey began. And so that essentially started to introduce me to the metaphysics that I started to practice, and the books that I started to read. And I started to go on YouTube and look for all of these different talks and teachers. I was listening to Bobby Hemmett and Dr. Phil Valentine and all of these different Black consciousness leaders to help me at that time, because I didn't really know where to go in the real world. So I went to YouTube and learned a lot from books and from YouTube. And that really started to, I believe, prepare me more and more for the journey of being a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, and get me past essentially that startup phase that so many Black women don't make it past, because in many ways they we have sort of the ideas, but oftentimes there's that capital constraint, so there's the money issue, which is also tied to our mindset, and then our skills, our know-how, which is in many ways also tied to our mindset. So essentially, this is what brings me to what I'm going to share with you all today in terms of the solution sets. But I wanted to also share a personal narrative so that you understand exactly that I've been there too. I know exactly what so many Black women entrepreneurs are going through or have gone through, because I was absolutely there myself, and really battling all of those challenges, if you will, that might have just kept me in that startup phase. And to be honest, I was doing that business for 2 years and it actually didn't make it out of the startup phase. So I was absolutely a statistic. I ended up having to shut down my business because there were so many limitations and constraints and challenges happening in my personal life that kept me from moving forward. Okay. So, I just want to pause there. And if there's any of you out there that can relate to this story or can relate to, wanting to have a greater wealth, journey for yourself, certainly DM me, drop me a comment. I really want to hear from you guys, because this is an opportunity for us to really build community around entrepreneurship, around Black woman entrepreneurship, so that we can support each other and understanding you are not alone, we are not alone, and we can really grow from each other and with each other in this journey. Okay. So certainly DM me, leave me a comment. I really want to hear from you guys and see you guys out there. And so yes, so back to the story. I didn't make it out of the startup phase. My hair product business didn't make it out of the startup phase. So I became that, 97% statistic. And essentially, after I shuttered that business and I had to move home for personal reasons, care for my mom, and then I ended up having my other child, my first child, and my dad passed away, so I was kind of managing his estate and his issues. There was a lot going on in my personal life, like I said before, that precluded me being able to give my 100% to my business. And so, as I mentioned, a lot that keeps solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, especially Black women, from getting out of that startup phase are these very things in terms of related to family, the generational trauma, the caretaking, the other aspects of life that really need to be tended to in addition to the business. But let me just be the first to say that even if you have the starts and stops, to do not give up, because obviously here I am today, like I said, 8 years later, still an entrepreneur. However, my business has completely evolved and grown. And I kid you not, I'm relaunching my hair products this year. Okay. So, so even though I had to stop and get my life in order and do the healing work, as I mentioned to you before, this was absolutely necessary in order for me to be able to relaunch my business and do it successfully, and have my current business and do that successfully. Okay. So this is hopefully is an inspiration and opportunity for you, that even with the starts and stops, even with the quitting and having to go back to corporate or whatever you have to do not give up on the entrepreneurial pursuit, because it's absolutely on your path. You just have to make sure you're preparing yourself to receive your gifts. Okay. And so the first step in that preparation, and I can't wait to sort of talk through these things, because it's really a beautiful opportunity for healing, is around addressing the fear. Okay. And I want to pull up this document here around why that fear can, and what fear is essentially. So when we have our thoughts, we have our mind essentially here, and we have our perceptions, our experiences, and our beliefs. They all inform our thoughts. So when we're talking about our perceptions can be everything from um, our day-to-day experiences and what's happening around us, and 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 our beliefs are oftentimes informed by our programming, what we've been taught as children, like I've mentioned this in previous podcasts. Oh, you need to, have everything on your own. You need to do everything on your own. You can't ask people for help, or, money doesn't grow on trees. All of these limiting beliefs that oftentimes keep us boxed in and unable to receive blessings and broader gifts. And then we oftentimes have lived experiences that so-called affirm these beliefs, because it's essentially a vicious cycle. So whatever you believe, in many ways, you're going to attract. So your experiences are just going to further affirm these false beliefs. So these all are going into our mind as we grow up and as we experience life, and they also inform our thinking and our thoughts. And this is essentially how the fear-based mind is created. And or the love-based mind is created, because you could have a perception that everything is beautiful, everything is utopian. You can have beliefs that money is abundant, money does grow on trees, money is my friend, money comes to me in a variety of different ways. And then you can have experiences then that affirm that. Like you have money that shows up, in your bank account from, I don't know, a deceased relative, or you could, stumble upon, something from maybe money in your pockets or money in your purse that you found or in the dryer. So you certainly start to have experiences that then affirm these beliefs that you have around abundance, and the perceptions that you see in terms of your experiences are with other people. And so this all informs the mind and how you show up in your day-to-day life. And so next we have the twin polarities of material perception that balance and disrupt the cosmic light intersection between universal intelligence and the inner divine, which is a mouthful, but essentially there are polarities in the world, duality in the world that we live in. In this dimension, the third dimension, there is duality in terms of love and fear. And love, as we know, is on the highest spectrum. It is that which, informs everything. It is that which represents God. It is that which represents, the divine. It represents all that is good. And then we have the fear on the other end of the spectrum that represents the opposite of that. And let's get into what fear is essentially. And it is false evidence appearing real. Okay. And I'm going to repeat that again for you all, that fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. So when you're feeling hatred, when you're feeling anger, when you're feeling pain, when you're feeling jealousy, this is coming from fear-based thinking. And essentially, this is what we're experiencing in our world today. The hatred, the jealousy, the judgment. And I want to read that part again, because that's how I was trying to bring myself back as I was reading that bottom part. Ooh, excuse me. As I was reading that bottom part of fear, is when our focus and attention are emanating from a core of fear, we generate, oh, there we go. We generate, cause, and or project distorted mind frequencies in the form of anger, hostility, pain, and jealousy, all of which are based in the service to self dynamics of judgment. Okay. And this judgment is such a powerful, powerful feeling that I've spoken to so many times in the past around releasing judgment of self. But when we have fear, we aren't trusting essentially. And I wanted to speak more to the fear, and then we'll move into the judgment piece, because the fear essentially is what blocks us. That is the blockage. But the fear oftentimes comes, as I mentioned before, from generational trauma. It comes from our programming. It comes from all that we've learned in terms of our perceptions, experiences, and our beliefs. Remember that slide? And it lives in our mind. And so when it's living in our mind, it's passed down for generations, of course. Like, this is what generational trauma is, and why we are, spanked as kids, why we're punished as kids, why we are, taught that, everything, especially around being a Black person, is, a struggle. It's hard. We're slaves. We're enslaved. We're oppressed. We're minority. Like all of these words and experiences and perceptions and beliefs contribute to that fear-based thinking. Okay. And so when we are walking around with this type of thinking, it is very hard to trust anything and anybody. And that essentially is what is keeping us, particularly as Black women, from moving past this fear based thinking into this abundant mindset and experiencing that wealth of being a business owner. That 97% of us are really trapped in this thinking, if you will. And so when we're working towards sort of like understanding the fear and why we aren't trusting, it is essentially, and I want to explain it in this way, a disconnection from God and is a disconnection from self. When we are in fear, it is oftentimes not knowing and not trusting that we are held, that we are kept, that we are safe, that we are protected. And this is what I've been speaking to, especially in recent weeks, as it relates to what's happening in the political sphere and what's happening with the new president, Trump, and that our fear and our anxiety and all in this strong Black woman syndrome, all the emotions that are running high are truly based in a disconnection from God, in a misunderstanding of our sovereignty as divine beings in human form. Because if we were to truly understand that our strength and who we are and that which we carry, then we cannot be hurt or harmed by anything and anyone. And that is a truth. That is a promise from God. And I know it's one thing to say, and it's a whole other thing to experience, but I'm going to continue to say it until it is truly embodied in my own being so it is felt by all Black women across the world. We are sovereign beings. And in that sovereignty, we must learn and allow the trust to happen for us in order to release that fear. And so in getting into that releasing of fear, I really want to talk about this, the judgment. And this was the next slide here that I wanted to, question you all and even like a call to action to like a like ask yourself, are you in your own judgment seat? Are you judging yourself with what you could have done, you should have done, you could have, should have been? Remember always that judgment comes from a place within that is dominated by fear and not by love. And I've talked about this judgment a lot in previous podcast episodes because I am right there with you guys in learning how to not be a perfectionist, not judge myself, especially not judging my emotions and my feelings. But so often we are judging ourselves, even when we're in this fear state. So take it back to the example I was giving around the hair products. And with the hair products, I was, really like, struggling. I really was, not knowing how to balance my family obligations and also running this business. And when I had to shut down the company, I was so ashamed. I like literally like hid from social media for years. Literally, I got off social media for like 2-3 years, probably 3 years. I was judging myself for things that were completely out of my control. I couldn't control my father passing away. I couldn't control my mother having, a breakdown after that and having to take care of her. I couldn't control, a lot of things that were happening in my life that kept me from being able to give my 100% to this business. I made a lot of choices and a lot of decisions that were certainly mistakes, and I judged myself harshly for them. So I had to go through the process of forgiving myself. And that's the step 2. So once you address the fear, step 1, and then understand the judgments you have, then step 2 is to do the forgiveness for yourself. Excuse me, step 2 is the sort of the forgiveness. Okay? And the forgiveness for me, it looked like the journaling. I started taking the metaphysical psychology courses at the University of Communication Sciences and actually would write out these essays. I would read these beautiful texts of these books that I've shared on my Instagram, The Awakening of Intelligence, The Handbook to Higher Consciousness, so many books that really were speaking to me energetically, metaphysically, spiritually, emotionally, to help me sort through that which I was feeling. And I would write out these essays related to my personal experiences and how I judged myself, how I needed to forgive myself, the mistakes that I made and what I could have done better. So I became my own case study. And in many ways, you have to do the same for yourself, essentially, because metaphysical psychology, I've said this before, psychology is a study of the mind, and metaphysical psychology is the study of your own mind, study of my own mind. So I had to study my own mind, I had to study my own experiences, and I encourage you to do the same in order to have that forgiveness for yourself. And when you start to have that self forgiveness and seeing, okay, I had this level of consciousness, I made these decisions, I learned these lessons, I won't do it again. This is how I'm going to do it better. Those are the steps of forgiveness. And there's also this beautiful text called A Course in Miracles that a lot of people recommended to me, and I've referenced to in supporting other people with their forgiveness, that it is a very beautiful kind of step-by-step process and progress in terms of going through forgiveness. And I'm sure there are other resources too out there. And of course, I can be a resource for you as you're working through your own self-forgiveness, because that is an iterative process. Like there's definitely stages and phases of self-forgiveness that are required as you are moving past your fear-based thinking. And even like understanding what's happening in our matrix, in our reality, in our world. So many people are awakening to things and are judging themselves, like, how could I be so stupid to believe this, or how could these people be so horrible and evil to us? And there's forgiveness that goes all around, not only forgiveness for self, but forgiveness for other beings, for transgressions that people have, had against you, or, me. There were so many layers of forgiveness that you have to go through in order to remove all of this fear-based thinking. It is absolutely necessary. Okay. And one of the hardest, I would say, steps in this journey is that forgiveness. I think, and we know that Jesus always talks about forgiveness, and a lot of people don't understand the process that it takes to forgive. It's not just forgive and forget. It really is energy. It really is work. It's conversation with yourself. It's conversation with coaches and teachers and people like me, people who are really able to hold this space for the big emotions that come from that forgiveness. Like, I can't tell you how much ugly crying comes out of the self-forgiveness, how much anger comes out of the self-forgiveness, how much disgust also comes out of that self-forgiveness, because we've been through so many experiences in this life and likely in past lives that really are horrendous. And it is okay, actually, because this is part of our awakening. It is part of the journey. And so many people are hiding from their experiences because they think that they're bad, or because they think they're judging it. They think that it's bad, or they think that it's not, disgusting, and then are not able to heal it because they lack the ability or the awareness to understand that I need to forgive these things that happened in my life, move on, grow from it, evolve from it. And that's how you call in the more abundance. That's how you shift your vibration. That's how you change your energy. It's not from running from your problems. It's actually running to your problems, investigating them, exploring them, questioning them, getting curious about them, challenging them, trying again, fucking up again, then doing it and repeating those steps, questioning, getting curious. What I do wrong again? Why I do that again? God help me, calling out for help from God. So this forgiveness step is certainly a cycle and an exploration of self and a curiosity with self. And I would also say a gracefulness with yourself. A gracefulness is the most important part, because the judging is so harsh, and the judging is like double punishment, because you're already experiencing the fucked upness of the situation. And then to judge yourself on top of it is a double harm, a double punishment. I done been there very recently. The self judgment actually is a disservice and a dishonoring of yourself. So we want to be able to remove that judgment, Move into a place of forgiveness, of self love, the last step, which I'll speak to here. I pulled it up earlier, but love really reflects emotions of joy, of satisfaction, of harmony, of the beautiful endorphins that really inform our lives. And the energy we identify as love, we have joy, satisfaction, and creation and secretion of endorphins. And overall, we feel good and we feel godly. Okay. And that brings us to the third step of choosing love. So once we forgive ourselves, then we're able to choose love for ourselves. And when we choose love for ourselves, it really emanates to everyone around us. Because when we choose love for ourselves, we set healthy boundaries. We have requirements, also called requirements for ourselves and how people can treat us or not treat us. And we hold ourselves accountable for that. That's love. And that's love for ourselves. And it feels good. It feels joyful. It feels satisfying. It feels harmonious. It releases these beautiful endorphins. Why people love to be in love, why people want to find love, because they think they're going to find it in someone else treating them well, when in reality, it comes from you. It comes from you treating yourself well. It comes from you being so in love and supportive and aware and forgiving of yourself and graceful with yourself that you're able to attract that in other people around you. And of course, there's going to be wobbles. Of course, there's going to be scenarios where other people are not honoring that. And then they're going to have to vibrate out of your life because they don't mesh and align with your love frequency for yourself. But if there's a wobble, trust me, it's going to be shown. but but essentially the love is what gets us into those higher frequencies to attract that wealth that we so desire. Getting back to how to be a billionaire, because that was the name of this podcast. We have to be able to understand that in order to get to that level of wealth, we have to be able to be a vibrational match to it. Okay. And I want to show a video that can help articulate that a little bit better.
Many people have an expectation that $500,000 is not going to come to them today. So today isn't the day again. And then today isn't the day again. And then today isn't the day again. But we want you to acknowledge that there may be too much resistance on your trail, on your path for you to let that money in right now. You could let a feeling of freedom in. You could bask in the understanding that you're free to choose, and you could bask in the feeling of freedom that nobody creates your own reality, and you could bask in the feeling of freedom that you and you alone establish your point of attraction and that everything responds to that. So you could shift the way you feel, and you could have the feeling of prosperity. And if you do that often enough, you will have practiced a vibration that holds you steadily in that place where money has to flow to you in powerful fashion.
Money has to flow to you in powerful fashion. And that's from my godmama. I'll call her my godmama, Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks. And she is the, expert master at calling forth that which you want. She has this beautiful book that I highly recommend called Ask and It Is Given. And it is a powerful, tool, a powerful workbook, if you will, around shifting your vibration and calling in the millions, the billions of dollars that you deserve. And you have to be a vibrational match to it. As she said, you will call it in powerful fashion. And that's the difference between being a billionaire today and what we've seen and grown up with, where it was, false light. It's been people pushing crazy agendas, as we've seen, to get to this wealth status position, and they aren't able to sustain it. They aren't able to teach it to anyone else, and they certainly aren't able to help anybody else in the process. So we have a lot of these billionaires around the world who are sitting with it and hoarding it. And we know all of these elite people are just hoarding this money, and so many of the humanity is essentially starving, while some people like Oprah Winfrey and all these, and you can name them, the billionaires, and we aren't seeing their support of the rest of the world. Like, like for me, and if I want to talk about my own journey in terms of my quest towards being a trillionaire and a nation state and supporting communities and supporting Black women and supporting women around the world, like this is essentially what I plan to do with my wealth and what I desire to do with my wealth. It's not to just sit on it and stare at people, struggling around the world and being miserable around the world and then donating to here and there when I feel like it. Like that's not the purpose of becoming a wealthy individual. And nor should that be for you. And I don't believe that folks that are here listening to this podcast have that desire. People who are here want to actually help others, are called to a greater purpose in order to shift humanity's direction. We none of us want to suffer anymore, nor do we want to see other people suffering anymore. So that essentially is a precursor to the billionaire, trillionaire path in this day and time. So if you want to have that billionaire, trillionaire status, wealth, positioning of power, of influence, then you must be a vibrational match to it. And in order to be a vibrational match to it, you must align with a higher source, your higher self, and getting there. And that's aligning to the frequency of love. As Miss Hicks said, Abraham Hicks said, the freedom, the love, the care, the happy feelings, the joy, the harmony, it requires an alignment to these energies. It requires an alignment to these frequencies. And as we align higher, as we clear the generational trauma, as we move past all of the negative and judgmental things that have kept us back and held us back, then we're able to call forth that which we deserve and know that we do. Okay? And so if this resonates with you, I highly recommend that you DM me, that you comment, that you really reach out to me too, because I am here to build a community of Black women that are doing these very things, that are aligning to a higher frequency of love, that are wanting to live harmoniously, joyfully together. And, you can visit, my website, erinpatton.com. I have resources there where we can learn more about shifting your energy, changing your life, and really moving into this wealthy, abundant, not only mindset, but way of being, of living, of existing. And so thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been fantastic. Like I said, I have my website, erinpatton.com. Also follow me at I am Erin Patton across social media channels. I want to hear from you. I especially want to hear how this episode resonated with you, because it came deeply from a place of love and gratitude for my own journey, my own entrepreneurial journey, my own challenges and struggles and the roller coaster of moving from fear, from judgment, into forgiveness for self, into love for self, into being a vibrational match for the wealth that I'm calling in, that's been flowing to me so beautifully and effortlessly, I have to say. I'm doing less now than I did before. I'm working less. I'm feeling more refreshed. I'm going on vacations. I'm experiencing love and joy and happiness with my family. My mom is in a great state. She's just chilling. My son is growing. He's evolving. He's thriving. And I'm seeing the fruits of my labor. And this is beautiful labor, I must say, of loving myself, learning how to love myself, getting out of the programming of where I came from, the generational trauma, into now a new program, a new matrix, a new reality that I'm designing that has never existed before for a Black woman. And I'm sharing that happily and so generously with all of you. And I want you all to come along on this journey with me, okay? So I thank you so much for your time. Wow, what a blessing. Love and light. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the Meta Business Millennial Podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.